Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, Darrell Owens, and we are back for another edition of One-on-One here on the Legacy Maker Sports Network, and of course, airing on the amazing Bowie Television. This, ladies and gentlemen, week 8, episode 186. We are pumped. We are excited. Thursday night football starting here, and in just a little while, we'll see the Chargers host the Minnesota Vikings, two teams coming off of a loss, trying to bounce back, trying to get things on the right foot. And we're going to see if they're able to do that tonight. That's going to be a fun thing. Two teams that need a win. Just to keep things rolling. The Vikings 3-3, Chargers 4-3. We'll figure it all out tonight. We got a new leader at the top. That's technically 4 straight weeks of a new leader, or 3 straight weeks of a new leader. But we've had 3 straight weeks of a new leader. So I'm excited to kind of see who's at number 1. I think you guys may know, but we'll get into all of that. With all that being said, let's go ahead and break it down. Episode 186 of One-on-One begins now. One, 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 one. Welcome to the one-on-one. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the proof. Welcome to the one-on-one. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the proof. Welcome to One-on-One at Legacy Maker Sports Network. Episode 186, One-on-One, Week 8 of the NFL Power Rankings. Is your boy, Darrell Owens, as we bring you episode 186, top of 186, Week 8 Power Rankings. We are pretty much halfway through the season. We have at least one more week before the trade deadline, which I believe is November the 4th. So there's a lot that's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. Very critical 2 weeks in the NFL season. Some teams are going to be making or breaking. That could be wrong. Could be make or break for both of those teams. There you go. Could be make or break for a lot of teams right now. And we're going to see who's going to be sellers and who's going to be, buyers at the deadline. There's a lot. There's a lot to kind of get into with it. So, but we'll get into that one next week for episode 187. Because by that time, we'll be a little bit closer and probably hear a little bit more. So these next 3 weeks, we start to hear a lot of rumors, all that fun stuff as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline. Now, we're halfway through the season, and it has been, or pretty much halfway through the season. It has been a very roller coaster ride. The bouncing back and forth, the shifting of certain teams starting to establish themselves as solid football teams that are still trying to get to where they need to be, teams that are back on the horizon, teams that need to pick up a win this week, or it could be disastrous. But there's a lot to get into. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get ready to bring you, ladies and gentlemen, the bottom. All right, the bottom for week 8 of the NFL season. Whew. Man, this is tough. I feel bad for them. At number 32, the New York Football Jets. I don't really have a lot to say about the Jets. I think I said it last week. They have decided, to bench Justin Fields. Doesn't look like he'll start the rest of the season. Look like it might be the Tyrod Taylor show. It's just bad. If you are a New York Jets fan, I understand. There was a video that came out this week that went viral of a Jets fan. They asked him how he felt about the game, and he was like, I hate this team. This man said, I hate this team. He said, I was born into being a fan of this team, and he'll always be a fan of this team. But he told the world that he absolutely hates this football team. And what can you say? The Jets currently right now, franchise-wise, it's been 15 years since they made the playoffs. 2010. It's been a long time. There's been some years where they had hope. Just 2 years ago, they had Aaron Rodgers, and everybody thought it was going to be, including myself, thought things were going to change. And we see where we are now. Whew, poor New York Jets. That's all I got for it. feel really bad for the New York Jets. I want them to win. I've picked them in certain weeks, and I didn't pick them last week. I don't think I did. I might have picked them last week, but I tried to stay away from them because I just thought, hey, at some point they'll figure it out. And I'm not going to pick them again, I don't think, this year until they win, unless they give me some type of hope. But now that they have Tyrod Taylor in, who knows? I mean, Tyrod's always been a solid QB. He almost helped them beat the Buccaneers a couple weeks ago. Yeah, that's all. I said I wasn't going to say a lot about the Jets, but it's heartbreaking. The Jets are at 32. At 31, the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee got beat up with the new head coach, or the interim head coach, I should say, coming in after Brian Callahan getting fired. It's bad, Tennessee just they're rebuilding. The word on the street is that they are open for sale, and there's only two people that are not available for trade, and that is our man Simmons on the defensive side, and then Cameron, obviously Cam Ward. They just drafted the guy, so everybody else is up for sale or trade, I should say. Sales a harsh thing, it could be considered slavery, but anyway, that's where they are. They're a bad football team. If they didn't have that one win, I would have them last. I would have them last. I feel confident in having them last. It's just not working out, and it's okay. They're just going to have to get through the season. Get a high draft pick next year, and try to continue to build, because that's where they are as a football team. At 30, the New Orleans Saints. The Saints, a little bit of a battle with the Bears, but the Bears handle business at home, getting a 26-14 win. It's Spencer Rattler, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks, 233 yards, 20 for 32. It just hasn't been pretty. Shout out to Chris Olave, who I think is going to be a really hot name trade-wise here in the next couple of weeks. Go get him, Green Bay. Should be a really hot name in trade talks here in the next couple of weeks. Think teams like New England will be probably going after him. So you got to watch out for that. I don't think Washington is going to be buyers at the trade deadline, but if that's something they could think about, if Terry's going to be out long term, if Debo is going to be out a little long term, maybe, but it's rough. The Giants are a team that could be interested, but it's a bad deal. Another team that I could easily put at the end. They were the bottom team for most of the year until they got that win, and it's rough. Those bottom 3 teams, boy, it's bad. It's bad. It's bad. But as close to being bad, and it's a problem because there's a lot of talent in this team in the Miami Dolphins. They got dollywopped by the Cleveland Browns. Just a utter beatdown. Dylan Gabriel and the crew going there and getting the win. Gabriel 13 for 18, 116 yards passing, no touchdowns in the air. Keyshawn Juggins, 25 carries, 3 touchdowns. Run the football, Cleveland. This is what happens. This is what people are talking about. Stop throwing Gabriel 155,000 times and run the football. And that's what they did, and they were able to get the win. Tua. Hawk Tua, whatever they say nowadays, the young girls. The young folks like to say the Hawk Tua. People probably wanted to spit Tua out of Miami as soon as possible. It's bad. 12 for 23, 3 interceptions for Tua. It's tough times in Miami right now. And I had them going 5-12. It looks worse than that. And I don't know, and I wouldn't be surprised if they may be a team that may start to sell. You look at guys like, maybe Waddle. I don't know if that's something that they may think about, but it's a possibility. Miami looks rough. They're at 29. At 28, the Baltimore Ravens. They're coming off a bye. Much needed game this week. They have to find a way to win. They got the Bears this week. The Bears are playing good football, but this will be a good time for them to try to bounce back. They're able to figure it out. If not, this season is going to continue to go by the wayside. But it's still early. There's still a chance for the Ravens to be a good football team, but it's going to have to happen quick. At 27, the Vegas Raiders. The Raiders got dog-walked by the Chiefs, 31-0. Shutout. Geno threw for 67 yards, 10 for 16, 67 yards. Genty, 6 carries, 21 yards. Just miserable numbers, like for a whole football game, it's bad. Tucker had 5 receptions for 33 yards. That's half of Geno's production. That's all I got. It's just it's so bad in Vegas. I don't know if they're gonna try to make the move and maybe let Kenny Pickett start. I doubt it, but it's bad, man. I'm telling you, some of these bottom teams is rough. These bottom, I say the bottom 3, but these bottom 6, man, maybe 5 of the bottom 6. I still think the Ravens still have a chance. It's early, but it's starting to not get early. We got the Raiders at 27. At 26, the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona Cardinals have lost 5 straight games. But in this game against Green Bay, they fought hard. They had a chance. Jacoby Brissett went in there, 279 yards, 25 for 36 and 2 touchdowns. He had a really good game. I argue, and I'm not trying to put no heat on Kyler, but Brissett looked better than Kyler these last 2 weeks. And the Cardinals had chances, and they just couldn't pull it off. They're currently 2-5, 5 straight losses after starting the season on such a high note for the Cardinals. It's tough pill to swallow. At 25, the Cleveland Browns. They got that win over the Dolphins 31-6, looking pretty impressive. They needed a win. They were able to get it, and we'll see if they can build from there. At 24, the New York Football Giants. Now, this one, ladies and gentlemen, probably the most disappointing out of all the teams. The Giants, you're winning beautifully. You go into the fourth quarter, you're up. I think they may have been up 26-0. It was a 19-0 or 26-0. One of the two. And Denver decides, you know what? We're not losing this football game. We're honoring the late, great Demaryius Thomas, who passed away at the age of 33. And they just say, you know what? We're going to honor this man. And they did that by dropping 33 points in the fourth quarter. 33 points. They were shut out the entire game until the fourth quarter, and they ended up winning that game 33-32. If you're a Giants fan, you're sick to your stomach. Jackson Dart and Scatterboo look like 2 great pieces for this Giants team for the future. But, man, that had to be a tough pill to swallow. 33-32. They were up big time. Big time. Remember the Giants game a couple of years ago when they lost to I think it was lost to Arizona. They were up big in that game and then gave it away. Man, the Giants, man. Whew. Boy, oh boy. At 23, the Houston Texans. Houston Texans losing at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time game against the Seahawks, who are killing it right now. I don't know what the NFL was thinking about making that a 10 o'clock game. I don't understand why that game was not. I know it's a Monday, but, make that a 9 o'clock game. Maybe it's not as bad. That game didn't end close to 1:30 in the morning. Maybe you'd make it an 8:30 game and maybe make the other Monday night game at like 6. You kind of give it a little bit more balance. They got to figure that out. And I understand it's West Coast time, but the West Coast is the only people enjoying that because everybody else trying to sleep. I didn't find out that Jackson Smith and the Jigba almost got beat up by the entire Texas defensive line until the next morning because I went to sleep. So the Texans, after winning 2 straight, lose this one. They're 2-4 in a division where the Jaguars and the Colts are playing good football right now. Oh, the Jaguars maybe not as much, but they had winning records. Excuse me. They're at 23. At 22, the Washington Commanders. Man, the Commanders were bad on Sunday. I was there. And it was hard to watch. It just never turned around. Like it was actually a decent game heading into half. Washington had scored right before the half, I think, to make it. I want to say it was 20-15 or 17-15, and I probably should know that because I was there. But busy working, shooting, and doing doing photography. So it's sometimes your mind get a little bit lost, but it was just bad. That second half, disaster. Dak looked amazing. Jaden Daniels gets hurt, who's out this week. They got him as doubtful, but he won't play on Monday against Pat Mahomes, a game that everybody was looking forward to seeing. To see Jaden Daniels go up against Patrick Mahomes. Now we will see Marcus Mariota against Patrick Mahomes. And the Commanders season is slowly slipping away. Slowly. So it's going to be do or die here soon for Washington. The next 6 games, are as follows, and they're tough. 5 of them are they don't look good for sure, and then one of them is a I'm not gonna say a gimme game. I used to call them gimme games, but as we can tell this year in the NFL, none games are gimmies, or maybe in any year, but should be on paper a gimme game. It's the Dolphins, but they got the Chiefs this week, then followed by the Seahawks on Sunday night, then the Lions on a Sunday afternoon 4:00 game at home. Then they hit the road to Spain. Then they got a bye. Then they come back and they got the Broncos, and then they enter December against the Vikings. After that, they got the Giants. I mean, look, I told people I just don't think that this schedule is good for anybody the rest of the season. Like, good for the Commanders the rest of the season. I don't want to say I hate to call them gimme games, but that's what I'll call them. The only ones I see that are logical are the Giants game and probably maybe the Vikings, but the Giants game, the Vikings, and the Dolphins. But the Dolphins are in such a tailspin right now. Like if you're watching and you lose that game, that's not going to be a good look. Just not going to be a good look. But they're at 22, and we'll see what they do against Pat Mahomes this week on Monday Night Football. I'm very excited to head over to Kansas City. It'll be my first time there, and I had a chance to see the great Pat Mahomes and crew in person. So we'll see how it goes. At 21, the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati, nice win against the Steelers, making me look bad because I had the Steelers winning it, trying to, up my Thursday night record. It didn't go the way I would like. Thank you, Cincinnati. But what a great game by Joe Flacco. He just made sure he found Jamar Chase. 16 receptions in that bad boy. 16 receptions. I mean, it was an amazing day for Jamar Chase. 161 yards and a TD. Fantasy owners are smiling from left to right. So the Bengals look like they have a reprieve here. They bring in Joe Flacco, 2 back-to-back weeks of Joe Flacco kind of figuring out the offense and looking like the crafting veteran that he is. He may end up saving the Bengals season like he saved the Browns season a couple years ago. Oh, boy, we'll see. Here it is, the bottom. Jets, Titans, Saints, Dolphins, Ravens, Raiders, Cardinals, Browns, Giants, Texans, Commanders, and the Cincinnati Bengals round out the bottom. Bottom is just interesting. And it's frustrating more than anything. There's a couple of teams there I feel like should be doing better. And it's not good, y'all. It's just not good. So we'll see how they, maybe they make out great this week. Maybe some of those 1-6 teams or 1-5 teams can figure things out and get some wins. But we'll see how they stand here as we head into week 8 and see how they look next week when we do our week 9 power ranking. With that being said, let's go ahead and go to the outside looking in. Outside looking in. At number 20, the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Falcons lose Sunday night against the 49ers in a 20-10 game. Penix, I think he did get a little nicked up in that game. He may not play. I'm not going to say he not play, but it is a little bit in question heading into this week's game. 21 for 38 and a touchdown. Bijan Robinson was held under wraps for 14 carries and 40 yards, which has been a tough thing to do this year because he's been amazing. But the more impressive thing about this is how the 49ers continue to win despite all the injuries. So when people say, oh, we're all banged up, you look at the 49ers and they're still winning football games. So it's hard to make that leap and say certain things when they're still winning football games. Falcons at 20. At 19, the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings in a battle with the Eagles, losing 28-22. They hung in as long as they could, but it just wasn't enough. The Eagles did what they needed to do to break the snide. They had 2 straight losses, able to get the win. Carson Wentz, 26 for 42 with 2 interceptions on the day. Jordan Addison looking like he's getting back in form with 9 receptions, 128 yards. But it just wasn't enough. The Vikings couldn't do, what they needed to do. And we saw a, Eagles team take advantage and get that win that they much needed desperate win. Get the word out eventually. But the Vikings are at 19. At 18, the Dallas Cowboys, 3-1 on the season, a nice win over the Commanders. We talked about how impressive that win was and the way Dak Prescott really just went out there and continued to show why he's an early MVP candidate. I mean, Dak Prescott, 21 for 30, 3 touchdowns on the day. Right now, he's second in the league in passing yards, second in the league in touchdowns, and he's first in QBR, the ESPN rating. But he's first in that. I mean, Dak's having a really good season right now. So if he can keep that going and Dallas can kind of figure it out defensively, they're going to be okay. And I said early in the season, even though I had Dallas going 7-10, which they're making me look stupid now, but I felt like they're a team that you just can't look past. And I feel like that's still going to be the case. The NFC East is still open for business. But if you're the Commanders, you're in a bad spot. If you're the Cowboys, you're just out of reach. If you're the Eagles, you got a chance to open it back up, especially with the injuries to Daniels and so on and so on. We shall see. At 17, and you know what? They're climbing slowly up the charts, ladies and gentlemen. The Carolina Panthers. 4-3 on the year. Shout out to the Carolina Panthers, man. They have done a really good job. Coach Canales, shout out to him and all the things that they've been able to do with the Panthers. It was an ugly win. You know, Bryce Young got a little nicked up in that one. I don't think he's going to play this week. I think they may go with Andy Dalton this week. But he was nicked up. But nevertheless, it was a hard-fought victory. And the Panthers right now, ladies and gentlemen, are continuing to play good football. You know, back-to-back wins for them. And 3 out of their last 4, beat the Falcons, beat the Dolphins, beat the Cowboys. So they beat the Falcons 4 out of their last 5. The Falcons, 30-0. Lost to the Patriots, tough one. But then they beat the Dolphins, they beat the Cowboys, and then they beat the Jets. Then they got the Bills this week. They beat Buffalo. Buffalo, you're in trouble. You're on the clock. The Panthers are, they're playing solid football. And that's all you ask for. I had them as one of my teams that could sneak and surprise people this year and just give people problems, and they've done that so far. Carolina's at 17. At 16, the San Diego Chargers, a.k.a. the LA Chargers. I don't know what to make of this team. You start off hot, 3-0, looking good. Last 4 games, you're 1-4. And that one victory was against the Dolphins. They looked miserable against the Colts last week, 38-24. Indianapolis is the real deal. I'm just throwing it out there. They're the real deal. It was a rough day for the Chargers. So a team that I had in the top 5 just a couple of weeks ago have slowly fallen down the charts, sitting in the outside looking in, trying to figure things out. They're at 16. At 15, a team that's doing the opposite of them. Started off a little rough, starting to pick it up a little bit. Kansas City Chiefs, after that 31-0 victory. Like I said, I'll get a chance to see them this week on Monday night. That's going to be a fun one. Kansas City is dangerous. Kansas City is dangerous if you give them the chance to be. And so you have to be concerned if you're anybody in the AFC or the NFL, period. They're 4-3. We got them at 15. At 14, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're slowly falling apart. Jacksonville was looking really good, and it has not looked good the last couple of weeks. Bad loss to the Rams. Bad loss to the Rams. And they, had a rough, tough one with the Seahawks last week. They beat the Chiefs a couple weeks ago. They beat the 49ers. They beat the Texans. They've beaten some solid teams. But these last 2 weeks have been tough, tough ones against the NFC West. They got the Raiders this week, so that gives them a little bit. Oh, they're on the bye this week, excuse me. They got the Raiders the week after next, so that'll give them a chance to kind of get things back on the right foot. Then they'll see the Texans and then the Chargers, which I think they can definitely win that Chargers game, just based off of the way things have been. But we got them at 14. At 13, the Chicago Bears. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The Chicago Bears are on fire right now. Chicago Bears started their season off a little rough. They lose to the Vikings, they lose to the Lions, and since then they beat the Cowboys, the Commanders, the Raiders, and the Saints. Now, granted, these are not, in some people's eyes, not good football teams right now, but they're winning the games they're supposed to win. They beat the Ravens this week, even despite the Ravens having the problems that they having. That could be a big win for Chicago and Ben Johnson and the crew. They got the Giants after that, the Vikings after that, all winnable games. And they play Pittsburgh. They got the Eagles as, by the end of November, but that's the Black Friday game. The Bears can make some noise here and potentially get in the playoffs, get in that picture. They just got to keep finding ways to win, and we'll see if they can do that. At 12, the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of disappointment. They were 4-1 heading into last week. They lose a nail biter against Cincinnati. They had a chance to put Cincinnati down for the count, or at least put them in a really bad position. And what they did is they gave the Cincinnati Bengals life. Now, Pittsburgh still leads the division, but now Cincinnati has a chance to try to, shock the world and maybe win the AFC North after, losing Joe Flacco. Not Flacco, Joe Burrow. And, he may be back by the end of the season, but if you're Cincinnati and Flacco's playing well, you might not even attempt that. So we shall see. And last but not least, at number 11 on the outside looking in, the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo was on a bye last week. They will play Carolina this week. We'll see if they can bounce back from their loss, their 2 straight losses like the Eagles were able to do. We'll see. And here we are, the outside looking in: Falcons, Vikings, Cowboys, Panthers, Chargers, Chiefs, Jaguars, Bears, Steelers, Bills. That, ladies and gentlemen, is your outside looking in. All right. Now, outside looking in is complete. Let's go ahead and give you that top 10. All right. The top 10, ladies and gentlemen, for this wonderful week of the Power Rankings, episode 186. Number 10, the New England Patriots. Now, I want to move New England up yet, but I'm not ready to do it just yet. But they're playing good football, guys. 5-2. Nice win over the Titans. They've beaten Buffalo. Like, this team is for real. You can't sit there and say that they're not, but this team is for real. Then they have some tough games coming up. They take on the Browns this week. Not going to say that should be a win, but it should be a win. Then you got the Falcons coming in. That's going to be a little shaky one, but it's a winnable game for sure. Then they got the Buccaneers. That's going to be a true test that second week of November. Then they got the Jets there. Then they play the Bengals. Now, like I said, that could also be a very interesting matchup. But the way the Patriots schedule is set up, the Patriots have a chance to make the playoffs and make the playoffs comfortably. That's not me trying to, trash everybody else, but they have a chance, have a really good chance. Patriots are at number 10. At number 9, we have the Seattle Seahawks, a team that is cooking. 5-2, doing their thing. They beat Jacksonville last week, who was looking good. They beat the Texans coming back. And, I like what I see from Seattle. Mike McDonald has those guys playing well. Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith-Njigba look like they are on point right now. Shout out to the Seahawks. That NFC West is dangerous. Look at this. We got 3 of the NFC West in the top 10. The Rams, the 49ers, and the Seahawks. Whew. Man, it's tough. It's tough. Seahawks at 9. At 8, San Francisco 49ers with that win over the Falcons and to move to 5-2. And they're still banged up, nicked up, and they're still finding ways to win. They did get George Kittle back. McCaffrey's doing his thing. Mac Jones has still been amazing for this team. I mean, what else can you say about a well-coached team? And I've said this for years. I always felt that Kyle Shanahan was probably the best coach in the NFL because he's always able to find ways to do well with, when injuries happen, because he's had to deal with a lot of injuries during his tenure in San Francisco. So shout out to him. They're at number 8. They keep hanging in there. They keep doing their thing. At number 7, the Denver Broncos. Whew. We talked about Denver's immaculate comeback against the Giants to move to 5-2. Denver was another team that was kind of struggling. I think Denver was like 1-2 at one point, and then they've been able to kind of bounce back, and now they're starting to click. The team that we thought they would be, and they look good. They got the division lead right now. They look good. So shout out to the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix and the crew. At number 6, the number 1 team from last week, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tough loss for Tampa Bay, against a really good Lions team. The Lions beating them 24-9 because last year the Buccaneers had their number, and these two have battled back and forth over the last couple of years. They had a playoff matchup against each other a year before last. It's been a nice little NFC rivalry. old NFC Central rivalry, I should say. But the Buccaneers lose a tough one. And, Baker threw the ball 50 times in that game. And it was bad. It was bad for them. They'll bounce back, though. The Buccaneers team is really good. At number 5, the LA Rams. The Rams with a nice, impressive win in London as they defeat the Jacksonville Jaguars 35-7. Devontae Adams and Matt Stafford going off together. I'm still mad because I did not start Stafford. I started Jordan Love. I wish I would have started Stafford. I would have won my fantasy last week. I'm probably going to start Stafford this week because I've got trust issues right now. So I'm probably going to start Stafford and Devontae this week to see what they can do. But with that being said, we've seen LA continue to get better. They're my Super Bowl pick. I picked them to go to the Super Bowl against the Baltimore Ravens. That's looking really bad right now for the Ravens. But on the Rams side, things look good. At number 4, the Eagles. Bouncing back after those 2 straight losses. They had a bye. They come back in. They recollect themselves. They get a win against Minnesota. They still need to find a way to get Saquon Barkley involved like a little bit more or get things going with him. Because, Saquon's cool with it. I guess to an extent. He said, look, as long as the team is winning, I don't care. And that's what you want vibe-wise. That's definitely a different narrative than what our man A.J. Brown has been saying over the last, couple of weeks and months. So, but shout out to the Eagles. Doing really good. And, they're trying to refine their footing. They're at number 4. At number 3, the Detroit Lions. Detroit with their win over Tampa Bay. Great win for them. Great win for them. They had a little bit of a setback against Kansas City, but they bounced back strong this week to get the win over Tampa Bay. And the Lions are prowling, trying to get back to the top spot. At number 2, the Green Bay Packers. Probably the most undeserving team to be in the top 2. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. Y'all know how I do my power rankings. I had a fan, texting on a YouTube page last week, and shout out to him. It was just like, look, man, you don't know what you're doing. And I told him, I said, look, man, mine's a very different style. I like to break down, I like to give those teams that had the opportunity, you put who's in front of you, you win those games. And I like to rank it based off of that, and then, in your record. So this week, because of their record, the Packers are number 2. If I had to give you my strategy for power rankings, I probably have them at like 7 or 8. But they won. They found a way to win against Arizona, but it hasn't looked pretty. They have to find a way to make it look consistent, and they're still not there yet. They're at number 2. But I'm not fully endorsing the number 2. So Packers, we'll see if they can figure it out. They've got a tough one against Pittsburgh this week. It's a huge one. Aaron Rodgers against the Packers. It's going to look weird. And Jordan Love cannot let that pressure get to him. At number 1, for the first time ever in our power rankings, the Indianapolis Colts. We've been doing this since 2022. And so shout out to the Indianapolis Colts for getting their first ever power ranking number 1 slot. And it's much deserved. Daniel Jones and the crew are killing it right now. They look dangerous. No ifs, ands, and buts. So shout out to the Colts. Here it is. Top 10, week 8. Patriots, Seahawks, 49ers, Broncos, Bucks, Rams, Eagles, Lions, Packers, and number 1 for the first time ever, the Indianapolis Colts. Shout out to the Indianapolis Colts. All right, there it is, our power ranking. Our power ranking is locked and loaded and all set to go. Now we finish it up with the finale. All right, Kings of the Gridiron for week number 7 of the NFL season. On the offensive side of the ball, none other than Jamar Chase, 16 catches, 161 yards, 1 touchdown. He averaged 10.1 yards per catch in that 34. I think it was actually 33-31. And I do apologize if I got the score wrong on that. It should have been 33-31. Victory over Pittsburgh, but a nice win for the Bengals, a much-needed win. They could have beat the Packers last week. The Packers got lucky, and that's why, I don't put anything. Cincinnati's still a good football team if they can just figure it all out defensively and keep the defense in check. I think Joe Cool, I don't know. He's the original Joe Cool. No, there's a lot of Joe Cools, but Joe Flacco will make sure I think will be okay offensively. And on the defensive side of the ball, speaking of the Green Bay Packers, Michael Parsons, 5 tackles, 3 sacks in his win over, helping his team get the win over Arizona. This is a nice game for Parsons as he continues to get, accustomed to being in Green Bay. That defense, that team as a whole have to figure out the consistency. I'll keep saying it till I'm blue in the face. But shout out to our Kings of the Gridiron for week number 7, Jamar Chase and Micah Parsons. MVP race, new guy at the top, Daniel Jones. Much deserved the way that this team has looked in Indianapolis. It's a shout out to Daniel Jones. I don't even know if he can win comeback player of the year too, but he would probably deserve that too, the way that things are going right now. So shout out to Daniel Jones. Baker Mayfield, still have him at 2 despite, a rough week, but I still like what I've seen from Baker overall this season. It was hard for me to take him out of the number 1 spot, but Jones, in my opinion, deserves it right now. At number 3, and a guy that I almost put at number 2, and that's Dak Prescott. Prescott continues to impress, and I think that they're going to keep making things happen. So watch out for the Dallas Cowboys as they, start to figure out things here in this season. And then at 4, we got Jonathan Taylor, who could easily be number 1, with his play and how well he's played so far, leading the league in rushing. He's been phenomenal. And it's a nice bounce back for Jonathan Taylor after a couple of years of injury-ridden seasons. And then Nick Bonito will be our last guy here. We kept it kind of the same from last week. This is our MVP race right now. Now, we head to, if the playoffs were to start today, number 1 team in the AFC, the Indianapolis Colts, would have the bye for the second straight week. And then you would have a new number 2 in the New England Patriots. They would take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The number 3 seed, Denver Broncos would take on the Chargers in an AFC West battle. Then we would have Pittsburgh versus Buffalo, which would be an interesting battle. Very interesting battle. I think they played 2 years ago in the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. But it would be a very interesting battle between those two. On the NFC side of things, and I'm still shocked by this, the Green Bay Packers are currently the 1 seed. I just don't even know if they deserve it, but they're the 1 seed. Number 2, the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers would take on the 7 seed LA Rams in an NFC West battle. That would be fun. The Eagles would take on the Seahawks. The number 3 Eagles would take on the number 6 Seahawks. And then the number 4 Buccaneers would take on the number 5 Lions. So that would be a rematch, but this time in Tampa Bay if the playoffs started today. Then let's look at your boy record. 61 and 46-1, like such a great start to the season. But these last 3 weeks have been ugly. 6-8, 7-8, 8-7. That's what your boy record has been the last couple of weeks. And it's been rough. So it's at 21-23 the last 3 weeks. And if I wanted to include the week before when I went 9-6-1, it's just been rough. Got to figure it out this week. I need a good week. 13-0 would be nice. But that's just me spitballing here. We'll see how it goes. And then tonight's matchup, and this is a tough one. I really wanted to pick the Vikings, and I got a feeling they're going to win it. But I went with the Chargers anyway. Got the win in 26-21. Will I be 4-4 by the end of this week? There's a strong possibility on Thursday Night Football, but we shall see. Then my picks, ladies and gentlemen, for the weekend, I've got the Chargers, Ravens getting back on the right track, the Bengals, Falcons, the Bills, the 49ers, the Eagles, the Patriots, Bucks, Colts, Cowboys, Packers, and last but not least, the Kansas City Chiefs. If somehow the Commanders win that game on Monday night, I will be like, woohoo. Watch out now. I don't see it happen, but we'll see. And, of course, on the bye this week, the Cardinals, the Lions, the Jags, the Raiders, the Rams, and the Seahawks. So 6 teams on the bye this week heading into week 8. Well, there it is, y'all. Power rankings locked and loaded. The finale set to go. We want to thank everybody for joining us for another episode of 101 as we, chug along in the NFL season. We'll be back next week to bring you our week 9 power rankings and kind of tell you where things are. Will the Colts still be number 1? Will the Packers? I swear to goodness, if the Packers find a way to take the number 1 spot, will there be a new number 1 for a 4th straight week? It's actually 4 straight weeks of a new number 1. So if it does happen next week, could we have a 4th one? We shall see of a new number 1. But we want to thank everybody for tuning in for another episode of 101 here on the Legacy Maker Sports Network and, of course, airing on Bowie TV. We'll be back episode 187 next week. And I cannot wait to be with you guys to bring you another episode. Until then, y'all be safe. Enjoy tonight's game. Enjoy some high school football tomorrow. Enjoy some college football on Saturday. Then you got NFL up until Monday. Until then, and then I think they got like weird Thursday, Wednesday games in like for college football. So like they try to make football. If I'm not mistaken, somebody said it was like 52 straight days of football. So hey, I guess just enjoy some football for the next couple of weeks. All right, everybody, I'm done. Until next time, peace. One. Welcome to the 101. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the proof.